Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beard, taking a look at race number 8 at Belmont at the Big A on Sunday. It's the Grade 2 Miss Grillo. 2-year-old fillies going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. Let's take a look at this field. It's a big full field, and it could prove a nice prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. Again, we're going 1 mile and a 16th. Overflow field, 12 in the body, 13 is the also eligible. Chad Brown very well represented with the 1 Virgin Colada, second in the PG Johnson last time out, and maiden winner Opulent Restraint.
Yeah, Chad's always, well represented in here. I think he's got 3 horses in here, Dan, and I think all 3 of them are contenders in this field. And listen, this is a sort of a really interesting, wide open kind of race. You can make cases for a lot of different horses. And there are a couple of horses that are already stakes winners in here, and the horse on the rail is stakes place. So it's not like you just got a bunch of horses who only have maiden wins behind them.
The third brown runner, the 9 Marvelous Madison, will be stretching out in distance off a debut victory. And as we take a look at the time form US pace projector, Marvelous Madison should show stretch out speed, although it's very tough to pigeonhole these lightly raced 2-year-olds into a particular running style just yet. Many of them have been rather professional, rallying from off the pace. I have a feeling the 7 Shifty is going to be forward, as is the 5 Grace and Grit.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll see how the pace plays out. It's not that easy to decipher, but certainly Marvelous Madison sprinted on debut and got bumped at the start, but had, plenty of handy speed in that race. So she could certainly go forward in here. I also felt like one of those second-time starters coming from Kentucky Downs Dam, the number 4 Corretto. I think that horse could be forward in here.
If the pace is hot, the 2 and the 3 share the fastest time form US late pace rating. We'll start things out with the first of the Chad trio. The 1 Virgin Colada showed off a big late kick to win her debut, came right back in the PG Johnson, was sort of in between horses on the backstretch, swung to the outside, turning for home, has a look at it, and it's just going to come up a little short.
Yeah, it runs fine in here. Overall, I thought the trip really worked out. She did maybe lose a little bit of position on the backstretch, but she was clear in time. And, unfortunately for her, Dan, this horse on the lead, had the jump on her, seems like a quality filly too, and we just really never letting Virgin Colada get to her. Still thought she ran well, really liked her debut where she got a great ride from Pratt and fired a good one.
You got the feeling that trainer Pat Reynolds used the sprint prep debut for the 2 Annie Goodbody, getting her legged up for the second lifetime start, stretching out, and made hay. Let's watch that race. This is a restricted maiden at Saratoga, and Annie Goodbody makes a nice move past this loose leader, goes right by.
Yeah, I like the move, too, that she made up the backstretch, too, Dan, because she was a little bit further back. She got herself into position up the backstretch and around the final turn. She's clear from the top of the stretch. Way too good for these horses. Nobody closing behind her in this race. So I thought it was a little hard to evaluate it, but nothing wrong with her first 2 starts.
Mayday Ready is the number 3, pulled off a big upset, debuting at Saratoga. Despite the fact that Frankie Dettori was on her back, the Tappet filly made a big wide move and then held off a more experienced closer. Why not try $1 million race for a second lifetime start? You get those at Kentucky Downs, and Mayday Ready ran just fine. Let's watch the replay of that performance. Mayday Ready is going to rally a little bit, Mike, in here.
She ran well in both of her races, I think, Dan. I mean, I think she's a major contender right back in this race, and I like that her connections are willing to run her back in another stakes race. Dan, her debut was a really good performance, even at a price. She did not get a perfect trip in that race, and she won anyway. And she got a better trip in here, but she got a better trip because she was super handy. She held her position in and among horses until it was time to get clear, and when she got clear, she ran.
She's the only 2-time winner in the field. You gain a lot of experience over that undulating course at Kentucky Downs, and Mayday Ready really fires in the stretch. Corretto is the number 4, like Mayday Ready. She won at Kentucky Downs. She won her debut for Graham Motion. Graham not known for getting the ready to win first time out, so it's probably a really good sign that this English Channel filly did so, and did so at 7/8 of a mile. Let's watch Corretto, who stayed up close to the pace and then finishes it off in likable fashion.
I mean, I really liked the race that she ran here. She was forward right from the start in here, but content to sit behind horses around the turn. They got her clear in the stretch. This horse on the lead, a maker first-time starter, is really running, Dan, and they're putting distance on the rest of these horses, but Corretto just overpowers her. I thought she won this race convincingly. She is bred to stretch out, a full sister to Spooky Channel, who was a really, really good distance turf horse. I mean, there was a lot to like about that performance.
Corretto was cross-entered in the Salima at Laurel on Saturday. Those turf races have been abandoned and moved to the main track. Expect to see Corretto here on Sunday. Grayson Grid is up next, a debut winner for John Kimmel. Took advantage of being close to a very slow pace, I thought, in that race. Let's watch Grace and Grit's debut against New York bred maiden specials. And she turns into the stretch with the lead, and they're not going to catch her.
I agree with your take there. The pace was pretty slow. She sat on top of it. She is much the best in here, Dan. And we'll see. Obviously, the slow fractions probably hindered the final figure that she could earn in here. I think the most interesting thing about her is her pedigree is basically all dirt on the dam side. And this horse was entered at least twice, maybe 3 times at Saratoga. Those races were rained off. And Kimmel did not run her on dirt, despite her pedigree. So he thinks she's a turf horse. He waited to get her on the grass. And she delivered when she finally got to run on the surface.
I think we were down at Monmouth when Good Conduct made her career debut sprinting for Cherie DeVoe, and I liked her that day, and she just didn't get out of the gate at all, and then ran on with a sneaky late run and a good gallop out, and you had a feeling she was going to run better second time out, and she did. She showed a lot more early speed. She was just run down by Rare Art, who's also in this field.
Yeah, only second best last time. Did get a pretty good trip in that race, I thought. Did have to do a little bit of chasing. That horse that finished third, Wild and Free, was on the lead, cut the corner on her, and to sort of get away. So this horse had to sort of chase her. I still felt like she had every chance to win, Dan, and she was only second best. Rare Art was better.
Shifty, the number 7, faced males in her career debut up at Woodbine sprinting. They dropped her in against fillies in the Catch a Glimpse Stakes last time out, and she showed good early speed. She blasted right to the lead in the 6.5 furlong race. And as they turn for home, Shifty is in control, and Shifty keeps on going, earned a very respectable 85 Beyer speed figure. Keep in mind, at Woodbine, you can race with Lasix in stakes races. That won't be the case in New York for her on Sunday, but she's cruising right now.
That's a good point that you bring up about the Lasix. It's something that you always have to keep in mind. But yeah, you're right. I mean, she did, in some ways, had all the best of it in here, just sort of got loose on the lead early. She's staying on very strongly at the end of this race, though. So it'll give you some hope that she can handle stretching out in distance. Dan, Cassie just having an unbelievably good year with all of his 2-year-olds.
She's by Medaglia d'Oro. She's bred to get at least a little bit farther. And I think they're going to be aggressive with her leaving the gate. The 8 is Opulent Restraint, a second out winner for Chad Brown. Let's watch that race at Saratoga. Found a nice position in the pocket in the early stages of this race. Irad's going to get her to the outside with dead aim on the leader. And she has to work a little bit, but I think it was a good foundation building performance as she heads into stakes action for the first time.
I agree. She did get an overall good trip in here, but you can see her, you can see it better on the head on, Dan, but all through the stretch run here, she's trying to get in on Irad here, so he can't really ride her. What I do like is that both times he got the whip out, she really responded to the whip. I think there's something there with this horse. I was there for her debut at Saratoga too. She's nice looking, but she did not look fully fit for that race. And she really looked like a horse who needed one. Got a great trip, ran, and then got a little tired at the end. Moved forward last time. I think she can move forward again.
And Chad's New York bred is the 9 Marvelous Madison, a horse that scored in this race going 5.5 furlongs at the Spa. Marvelous Madison's had a good stalking trip in here. She was bet like she couldn't lose against fellow New York breds, and it helps when the inside opens up and she shoots on through.
I mean, the trip is ultimately a good one. She did get bumped at the start, so had to overcome that. But otherwise, she just got a good trip, and she always looked like she was going to win, Dan. I still feel like she's not totally clued in through the stretch run here, but she just keeps finding when she has to keep finding. Overall, I know it was against New York breds. I know it was going short. I liked that debut. I thought she did a lot of good things in there.
Salt, the number 10, was no match for Shifty last time out in the Catch a Glimpse, her first start out of the maiden ranks. Can you make the argument that she was compromised by the lack of pace in that race, or did you just want to see her run a little better?
I mean, I think both. I mean, I kind of did want her to run a little better, but maybe she was compromised behind a wire-to-wire winner. I guess the main issue that I had with her, Dan, is if you want to give her the pass for the last one, then how do you evaluate her debut, where she's right up on a really slow pace and wins?
Scythian is up next, debuted on the dirt for Belmont, who often gives them a race or two. Stretched her out second time out, and she looked like a winner every step. Let's watch the stretch run. Scythian just had a beautiful trip behind dueling pace setters, but relaxed very professionally. Turns into the lane, swings 3 wide. These leaders have burned themselves out, and Scythian goes on about it. She's still learning. She's still a little bit green, but I think this runner-up is pretty good.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from this, Dan. She, just not entering her against boys in her second start to get her on the grass is probably a good sign for her. And she did get a good trip in here, but She ran. The runner-up really fought her in there, but she ran and closed that horse down at the end. I think there's better to come for this horse.
Rare Art was beaten by Virgin Colada in her debut, a race where closers seemed to do best, and second time out she was bet down off of that race. Let's watch Rare Art get the better of Good Conduct. Rare Art settled in the back. She just didn't seem ready for the break, it looked like, and was off a little bit slow, but she swings about 4 or 5 wide into the stretch, and she goes about her business. She's just better than Good Conduct, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I mean, she got an overall good trip, and you're right. I thought maybe a little unprepared for the start, so they had to take her back a little bit, but she's fine in this race. To me, she's just clearly best at the end of this race. Going back to her debut, she ran fine in that race. I thought the trip was there for her. Virgin Colada was just better than she was. This horse did move forward last time, though. Now she's got to deal with a pretty difficult post.
Very difficult post indeed. Pookie the 13 would be in a tough post if she gets in off the AE list. She's still a maiden. She finished behind Rare Art in her debut. Let's take a look at our top picks for the Miss Grillo. It is a tough post, but I was heartened by Rare Art's 2 performances at Saratoga. She seems like a really nice-looking filly just watching her on the screen. I think there's going to be some pace for her. It's all about whether she can get a trip, and Rosario might be the right guy to do it.
I agree. Trips are going to be important for everybody in here. So we'll see how all this stuff works out here. I took Coretto on top. I know those Kentucky Downs races can be really tough to evaluate whether good or bad, but I really liked what she did in there. And I feel like she might have more to give. And if it's not her, Dan, I just sort of took 2 of the Chad horses second and third there. I do have a thing for Opulent Restraint. I think she's going to move forward again in this race.
I have the 2 Chads in there, as well as Shifty, who is a ridden out winner against stakes competition, albeit sprinting, albeit with Lasix. 4813 for Mike, 12718 for me. Should be a good edition of the Grade 2 Miss Grillo in New York on Sunday. Good luck. Hey buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner, and just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.